when I, got off the drugs and sober up, I had to concentrate on fighting my case because I was facing so much time. The gangs, like I mentioned, to earn your tattoos, you have to beat people up. And that's what the gang culture's about. I mean, look at the size of me, who am I going to beat up? They called me a blankie because I didn't have any tattoos. I was hiding out in my cell for most of the time, just reading and writing, and trying to avoid all the drugs, drama, and violence. But there's people like serial home invader torture who just, will root out people like me just to pick on. So the drama does follow you around. But yeah, I tried to turn it into the educational opportunity of a lifetime. I said to myself, I'm in here, I've got this amount of time, what can I do? And I set myself that goal of reading 1,000 books. My sister's got a degree in classical literature. She read hundreds of books. And when I told her, how many books I was reading, she was like, you lucky bugger. She's like, people got lives, responsibilities, families, There's no way on earth you could achieve that goal unless you were in prison. Yes, Matt.
On well, bank holidays, but like Christmas, New Year, and Thanksgiving, was there any kind of little prison party? Or was there...
It's the highest suicide rate is on Christmas Day in prison. People are reflecting on what they've done. They're reflecting on they've put themselves in prison and hence they are not with their family members. And it's a very moody day. Guys aren't out on the workout stations. A lot of people are just in the cells doing the drugs. And there's alcohol called hooch that they manufacture themselves, getting drunk on that. But yeah, it's like a fever spreads across. It's like a winter virus, affects everyone. And the guards really keep the distance because things can really kick off on those holidays. Yeah. There was a hand over on this. Okay.
Did you continue to use drugs into you?
No, because I saw the end result of drug use, it completely put me off it, And I knew I couldn't change my past. I was ashamed of dealing with drugs, but it motivated me to want to go out and share my story with other people because I believe in karma. And so I haven't gone back to doing drugs. Like I mentioned, I went through that period where I had anxiety and shyness, and the ecstasy made that go away. But once I got in prison, being forced to live with hundreds of people, a lot of them violent, crazy people who you probably cross the road to avoid, being forced to live with them at such close quarters, day in, day out, it crushed a lot of that anxiety and shyness out of me. So now I feel confident enough in my own skin to not be doing drugs. I think a lot of people do drugs because there's something hurting inside of them. And that's why these people shouldn't be criminalised. They need to have some kind of counselling. Because if you're happy in your own skin, why do you need to be doing anything, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So do you advocate the rehabilitation model in prison service, and how would you see that sort of working?
If you look at the highest crime and reoffending in the world, it's in America. If you look at the lowest, it's in Scandinavia, where they have human rights, they treat them humanely, and they have rehabilitation and education, and they give the guys job skills. That's the key, right there. People who get out of prison are going to be our neighbours at some point. If you treat them like animals, a lot of them are going to get out and behave like animals and just commit more crimes. But, our government is following the American model. It just does not make any sense at all, financially for the taxpayers. But it makes a lot of sense to the corporations that are putting the contributions up. Okay?
You said that the drugs allowed you to be free with yourself, you can go and chat to women.
Yeah.
Now that particular thing there's something in society that prevented you from talking to women or dancing around.
Yeah.
So that's still in society, this thing that stops people from being themselves.
Right.
Need something.
I think there's a lot of pressure on teenagers in different ways. These days, look at all the self-harming that's going on, all this other stuff.
Don't we breathe that into them?
Don't what, sorry?
Don't we, as a society, breathe that into them?
I think there's good and bad in every society, and that's the bad side of it that you're describing. Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, I read your books on the Gregories and
okay, great.
a few of the other ones, and the common theme, it seems to me, was that although all of them had pretty horrific conditions that they had to put up with. It was the guards that were the worst aspect. Although in your book, it felt like a lot more of the threats and the violence came from the prisoners' side.
Yeah.
So which was worse, the conditions, the guards, or the other inmates?
Which was worse, out of the conditions guards of an inmate? I think over time that changed. It would depend, you know, if you get put in prison, anything can happen in these environments, depending on who you run into. You know, if you run into a guard who's a psycho or a prisoner who's a psycho, you know, all hell's going to break loose. But there was good guards as well. They weren't all big bad robo-cops. There was guards who said they didn't like the sheriff. They were on the front line working for low pay, taking all the risk and stuff like that. I know what you're on about, was it marching powder? Marching powder, or the damage done, the guards, the damage ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on the record said that she was back in Thailand when she got moved to the UK.
I remember that, yeah. I think, you know, the guards, they would come and do a security walk every now and then, and if you kept out of the way, it was pretty much alright, because most of them didn't want trouble. You know, they didn't want to risk getting shanked and stuff like that, or catching hepatitis C off somebody. So they pretty much kept out of the way, but there were, every now and then, a SWAT team would come in and strip everybody naked and throw people around and throw all our belongings around and stuff like that. And that was about the worst it got with the guards that I experienced personally. If you look at these videos on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, those guards going in and murdering these mentally ill people, they go in like a pack of wolves, and these guys have got no chance. And there's like 12 of them on one person, just flopping around on the floor, and it's like they're high on the violence. But, you know, I never experienced that myself, but it was going on in the jail. So everyone's journey through the jail is different. Yeah. Yep.
Did you get into trouble by writing your blog? Because you said you had to smuggle it out. So did they find out that you were actually writing a blog about them?
Fortunately, I never got any trouble with the authorities writing my blog. It takes the wheels of bureaucracy quite a while to catch up with it. The reason we put it under the name John in the remand jail was because my mum was aware of the guards murdering the prisoners, and we didn't want any repercussions to happen onto me. We only released my name to the media after I got moved from the remand jail over to the prison system. In the prison system, the guards weren't routinely murdering the prisoners. It was the other way around. Each housing unit was named after a guard who'd been murdered by the prisoners. I felt comparatively safer then. The guards did pull me aside a few times on it and told me that if I was using real names and stuff like that, I was going to get in trouble. I wasn't using anyone's real names. Since then, they've classified my blog and all my books as a threat to the security of the institution. They've banned the prisoners from writing to me. If you tell prisoners they can't do something, they'll always figure a way around it. They send the letters to somebody else and he forwards them to me. And under the, you know, it's the constitutional right to freedom of speech. They can't be stopping that. One of the guys I was writing about, he started his own blog off the back of mine. And the prison moved him 3 times in 1 year because of his blogging, which is it's really unsettling getting moved to a new prison and having to, you know, re-establish yourself. And they also cancelled his good time, which means they were holding him in longer. The only reason he got released was because he got a pen pal, I referred to him, out of Scotland, a lady, went to visit him, they fell in love, and she said, "You've got to stop blogging, or they're never going to let you out, because I'm going to move out here and marry you." She did, he stopped blogging, he got released, and they've just had a baby. Yeah. So it's not all horror stories. At the back?
Hiya. They started to put mindfulness in schools now, which
Yes.
you probably know about.
Yeah.
And it sounds like something like that would have been really helpful to you. But you said that there is a psychologist that they have in prisons. And so is that a very, I mean, you found it very useful. Is that, do many people take that up? Is it like an optional thing? Or?
No, when it comes to psychologists in prison, the prisoners view everybody who's staff with an us versus them mentality. They feel that if they go and talk to the prison psychologist, records are going to be made in their files that are going to later on be used against them. So there's a lot of extremely seriously mentally ill people. After Cuckoo's Nest came out in America, the public were outraged at the treatment of people in mental hospitals.